Welcome to Psychic Holistic Spotlight of Rhode Island. I'm Kathy Costa, your host for today, and we also have Josie Way and Bill Hannon co-hosting with me today. And today we have a repeat guest on our show, Joe Higgins. He's a spiritual author. He's a medium as well too. But we'll be talking about his book, his latest book that he authored today. I believe it's called Always Connected.
Yes.
So what's the inspiration for this, though, or was this time for this to happen?
Yeah, actually, I started this particular book probably about 8 or 9 years ago. And then, so a lot of it was completed before I actually put it all together last year. And, but there was a lot of stuff going on over in Afghanistan, and I switched to my veterans book at that point because there was such a need for it, you know, a lot of suicides and things like that. So this kind of project went on the back burner.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then last year and stuff with COVID being kind of in a lockdown, I said it'd be a great time to finish up on this book.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to do a book for people that have lost children because it's very, it's kind of complex, you know, and there's a lot of, you know, just so much like pain and suffering around that whole subject that I wanted to see if we could get some insights for people that have lost children. And so I said, oh, this would be a perfect time to sit down and put it all together. So I dug up some of my old notes, and I was like, oh, this is great. I got a lot here already. And then I went to work, and 6 months later, we got it all done. And I'm very, very happy with it. Yeah, I wanted to break it down like I did the veterans book. I wanted to have it from like different angles and different perspectives, meaning I asked a lot of questions about the whole subject, you know, of people losing children. And I also wanted a section on signs that the children send to people on this side to let them know that they're still around them. And I wanted some insights from the children about certain subject matters, like I did with the veterans book. I asked some soldiers for some information because the children's perspective on the other side can help us with some of the big questions that parents or anyone that has lost a child about guilt and about connecting with them and certain things like that.
Yeah.
And the kids are straight shooters, so they're great. You know what I mean? They just kind of lay it on the line. They got a great sense of humor when they come through. So I decided it will take it from those 3 different angles, and that way, you know, some of these subjects are very, you know, they're very intense. It would give us a better perspective on the whole subject. So that's how I went about creating the book.
Yeah. So I have a question. What is the most common theme you find with parents that have lost their children? Is it the struggle of the loss of them?
I think the main, I mean, there's so much, and that's one of the reasons why, you know, I wanted to make this a comprehensive book. It's almost 300 pages because there's all different aspects and different situations. There are some that are very, that go across the whole gambit, like parents having guilt, you know, is there something they could have done?
Sure.
Big question, why did they leave? You know, why did they leave now? You know, why is this happening to me? You know, it's such a tragic loss. There's no purpose to it. You know, a lot of big questions like that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to write the book, to get some insight,
Sure.
so that we could tell people kind of like a little glimpses of what we know.
And at the base of it, there is a reason.
The basis is that there's a bigger picture.
Right.
I know it's a cliche, but cliches are usually true, you know?
Yeah.
So there's always something else going on. There's a bigger picture to be seen. And so I was very happy with some of the stuff that came through that gives clarity about certain things that we need to understand.
Now, I have a question concerning, you mentioned that, you know, you've had some of this stuff on the back burner for years. Do you find that when you start something and put it down, and start it again, and pick it up, and that things kind of come together a little easier because some of that stuff may have been percolating in the back of your mind? Maybe the sequencing of what you had already done might have changed over the years, or?
Yeah, I mean, it does help because just some of the material, it continues to add up. Like some of this information came through readings that I had given to some parents that have lost children, and their children came through, and one of them, Carla, told me and showed me visually all about exit points,
Yeah.
which is some of us have heard about, and we can talk about it, and it's really important. And Carla was like 11 or 12 years old, and she showed me exactly, what happens, why it happens. And I remember giving the reading, and this was a long time ago, many years ago. I said, I got to remember this to put it in the book, a book, somewhere down the line.
Right.
So I take little snippets like that if I have a reading experience, and I'll put that to the side and say, that's got to come through because that's really important information, and somewhere, somehow,
Right.
it's got to come through on some particular book.
Right.
book.
Yeah,
Like,
So-
kind of like,
note to self.
Right,
Yeah.
like note to self. Sometimes I'll even talk to the parent and say, listen, that's really interesting. She'll say, I'll say, that's the first time I've heard that. And I'll say, remind me to put that in the book because when I'm doing the reading, I might forget about it in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about it and stuff. But Carla gave me a lot of information. And there were a few other kids that came through that gave some really good information on suicide and stuff like that. So that was put to the side so that when I did start to accumulate a lot of this, it's a matter of, the way I do it is I just kind of pop it in different sections and then change the chapters and see what story fits where, and then I'll go back and then I'll go into the current situation and try to get what's going on and to fill in this questions on this
Right.
particular thing.
Right.
So I have a group of guys on the other side that helped me answer a lot of these questions, and the individual children that gave insight were actually, their own personalities and talked about their parents and stuff like that. And it's nice because each chapter, the way it's set up is the information comes through on the questions, and then the children will give their insights on that particular subject. And then the children will give, there'll be like 5 or 6 sign stories, around that subject matter. Okay, so I think there's like almost 50 sign stories in the book, which are just fantastic. They just make you smile, and it just reinforces the information that's in the book to show that life continues on, and they're still around us,
yes.
and that's extremely important.
So what are some of the signs that they give?
Just like the signs that we get from adults, you know what I mean? They'll do sounds, smells, music. They'll play with people's music and stuff like that. They talk about sometimes they try to get through because they can't. They can't get through because dad's too upset, mom's crying, and so I give some examples in the book on how to try to get on an even keel to allow your children to come through at least a couple times a day or at night maybe before you go to sleep, because the kids are like, they'll say an example like, I can't talk to my dad when he's upset because it's like trying to see through fog, and it's very tough. But if I get the music for him to play music, that clears out, and then I can come through with a sign. So she can help manipulate the music for his song to come on. His stress comes down, his mind kind of opens up a little bit, and she can come in. They're great, they really are. And then they play practical jokes too.
They do, yeah.
God bless them.
Yeah. That's right.
So you mentioned that sometimes that the children pass by suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Is that tougher for them to come through to the parents though when that happens?
No, it's coming through to send signs and stuff. It doesn't make any difference how they
Okay.
pass.
Okay, so it's
know,
not a factor. Okay.
No, that would not be a factor.
Okay. Now explain to the audience what the exit points are, so we can talk about that a little bit.
Exit points are certain periods of opportunities for once, if you had, when you come here and you've completed a lot of your studies and things, goals that you wanted to complete, there are exit points that are built in throughout our lives that if we wish to cross over back to where we came, we're allowed to. And one of the reasons they do this is because if they continue on the path, that these new lessons that they will
Experience.
experience with other people or other people around them are unnecessary because they've already experienced them, they've already learned it, and it can create more pain and suffering. So let's take an example of Carla. When she had passed, so young, the parents would fill with guilt and stuff like that, like right off the bat, obviously, because
Yeah.
she was hurt in an off-road accident playing. And so they wanted to know if it was their fault. And so anyways, Carla came through and said that, no, it was meant to be. I picked the time. which is another huge thing. People think, especially with the people with the guilt and stuff about the kids, you know, it's my fault, it's my fault. Believe me, you had the choice to have a child.
Right.
That was it.
Right.
The child decides if it wants to be born and when it's going to die. People need to understand that.
Yeah.
These children are individual spiritual beings,
Right.
just like we are.
Right.
Okay, just because they're tiny
Right.
and they can't talk doesn't mean that they're
Right.
old, wise
Yeah, the soul
souls
level, yeah.
that can blow us away.
Yeah, right.
They are individual soul, individual beings. So, so Carla explained that, no, Mom, it was my time, and I decided to take an exit point. And what she showed me a highway, and she showed me an exit. And then about a little wise up, there was another exit ramp, and then a little farther up, I told them, the parents, I said, the road comes to an end. The highway just kind of stops. You know, like when they're rebuilding a highway, they
Right.
just cut it off.
Right.
So I said, she decided to take the first ramp because it would be less pain and suffering for you guys. So then the parents come back to me and they validated it, which I love. That's why I said this has got to go in the book. They say, well, that makes a lot of sense because Carla had a rare blood disease. And the doctor said she wouldn't have lived to her 20s. So that explained the shorter road.
shortness.
Right.
And they said within a couple of years, she would be bedridden and then in a hospital and a nursing home
Right.
for many years getting blood transfusions and all this other
That's
stuff.
right.
And it would be very hard on the parents.
Yeah.
So then all of a
Emotionally,
sudden, everything came in. She had done so much, and she was like an old soul. When she comes through, she's hysterical. But so she decided to take that first exit ramp because she knew what the parents were going to go through. They didn't have to go through it. And she was going to, her life was going to be shortened anyway by the time she turned 20. So the visualization was there, the explanation was there, the validation from the parents telling me this, which I had no idea, because I'm like, why is the road shut, closed off?
Yeah.
And so I decided that that was definitely a learning moment that we have to share. I have to share with the with people that lose children, but it also kind of goes for adults too. It's a nice explanation on exit points that we have. There's other things going on a soul level. We'll make those decisions, and they're made for various different reasons, but that's one of the main reasons. So.
Yeah, it sheds a lot of light on, making it easier on everybody.
Right, because people don't understand that there might be other things coming down the pipe, no pun intended.
Oh, yeah.
That the reason why they picked that particular time.
Right. Right.
Now, a lot of times in my readings, especially the medium ones more than the psychic ones, a lot of times the parents have a hard time with why didn't they die old? Because we always have this
Right.
thing in our head that like we're meant to die old, and we're not always meant to.
Right, and the main thing is on that major question, we look at everything as linear. We look at
Yeah.
birth and we look
Yeah.
at death and we see the aging process. When actually it's a circle, it's continuous. And the more you realize it's continuous, that we're just, we're at a certain time at a certain day, a certain position in our development of what we're doing. So people have to realize that baby, like I had said before, is a full spiritual being. Just the way she is, she'll be when she's 90. She'll have more experiences, maybe more insights, maybe she'll affect, through her teaching, other people's experiences. But her soul being will be the same.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of she's in a physical plane, which is the earth plane.
Right.
But when she goes back to the spiritual realm and we eventually pass over and see her, it's like, it's immediate, obviously you're, there's a greeting and all that other stuff and fun stuff, but you recognize them right off the bat and stuff. So people have to realize that it's not the length of time, it's the quality of time. Some people have come to this plane of existence only to be here a short time, to facilitate a few opportunities maybe for others, or opportunities for them to experience themselves, and then that's all they're here for.
Right.
So, you can actually teach anytime in that whole linear age group. An infant can teach the same thing as an 80-year-old person can.
Yeah.
Okay, people don't understand that, but they can teach about love. You know, a baby can, or even a child, let's say someone like 4 or 5 years old, you teach them how to ride a bike, you know, and you're like holding them and you're like, I'm right behind you, I won't let you fall, you know, and they're learning, they're teaching you actually how to care and how to support someone. 80-year-old man goes to a nursing home after falling down. He needs help walking. I'm right there. I'm right behind you. The nurse, you know, will help you. I'll help you walk. It's the same thing. That loving transfer of helping as an infant or a young person as an 80-year-old. So we have to get the whole idea of age out the window.
Right.
Because there's a bigger picture. Okay? And us as spiritual beings, it's a way bigger picture.
Yeah, a lot of times I have to say though, it's like we're souls first, people second.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, humans second. A lot of times
Right.
we
Of course.
forget that. You
We're
know,
just,
but
right.
Yeah.
yeah, there's
Right.
a disconnect there a lot
We're
of
just
times.
the
Yeah.
vehicles for us to
Yeah.
go through the
Exactly.
play.
But society gets it backwards.
Yeah.
Right.
Because we forget that once we come here though, like that where we came
Well,
from,
that's
what we
the
were.
ego aspect of it,
Yeah.
which is important.
Yeah.
You know?
Right, and you know, baby's like the perfect form of humanity, you know, they say, because before they start getting messed up with parents and cultures and stuff like that, before we get the hands on them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, you know, you'll do it this way. So, but we do come here with, you know, I hate to use the word soul contracts, but it's actually, you know, it's a bunch of opportunities that we wish to be able to accomplish.
Right.
And that might be for us to learn or for us to teach other people. And then they have life plans, which is basically how it's going to happen. You're going to draw it out. You're going to be born into this particular family, in this culture, at this time, live in this location. And then you have free will, which comes in like a bowling ball and says,
Yeah.
no, I think we'll change it. You know what I mean?
Right,
But
right.
it's flexible so that you can still have the opportunity to experience and to teach others. But it can change, it can shift. And in the book, there's an example of a young man, a man that wants to come to the earth plane, and he wants to know what it feels like to save someone's life, to give his life to
Right.
save someone else's life. So the life, that's the soul contract. Now the life plan is he's going to be born in England, okay? He's going to join the Navy, become a sailor, and that's going to open up those opportunities for him. So he's born, the whole 9 yards and stuff like that. When he's 11 years old, 12 years old, the parents decide to move to America, and he moves to California. And instead of joining the Navy, he becomes a surfer. Okay? Same opportunities on the water, working, he's going to have that opportunity to fulfill that contract, but through free will, the life plan has shifted. Okay?
Yeah.
So there are some aspects that you can, you know, when you fall into, you know, our soul groups, you know, which is a lot of people that we decide to come over here with,
Right.
sometimes before they're here, or sometimes they arrive after us, and
Sometimes
you can
they're-
feel it.
Sometimes their coming in causes a response to other loved ones to want to come in too.
Right, right, and it's you know, it's kind of like it's like a play, and different characters come on stage at different
Right.
times, and some leave and some come back.
Right.
And you know those characters because once you go home, you see them after. It's like after a play, everyone has a celebration and a party. Like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
you played that part.
Yeah.
Oh, you played that part. Oh my God.
Right,
You know,
right,
oh,
right.
That's
you,
when we
you were my
remember,
sister in
yeah.
3 lives. I was like, oh, you're good. You're good. I want you on the next one. You know? And it is. It's like this big reunion.
Right.
And but children are special. They're very, very special
Right.
because they're very powerful. A lot of them that I've been encountered with them are very advanced. A lot of them take on a lot of burden when they come here. And so when they go back, they're great teachers. They're great teachers. A lot of times people that passed early at a young age for various reasons, they come back as healers, you know, nurses, doctors, they
Right.
might be protectors, police officers, or
Sure,
firemen,
sure.
counselors. They do a lot of the hard work because they have a little bit of that experience on the soul level.
Sure.
So it's never a lost opportunity
Right, right. I mean, and you know, it's interesting. I mean, I was just watching this interview on this gentleman who was born into a family that just happens to have genetic predisposition to colon cancer. I mean, and so he saw it as an opportunity when he was diagnosed with stage 4
Right.
colon cancer, that in 3 months he was able to turn around and beat it doing certain types of diets and things of this
Right.
nature. And so he feels like this is his contribution to show people a different way.
Yeah,
You
right.
know?
He's coming in through an example to teach.
Right.
And we all do to a certain extent. And even the smallest one, where you say, "Oh, that's a wasted life," it's never a wasted life. It's never,
no.
ever, ever.
No.
It's just that we might not realize it, because once we're in these bodies, our perspective just kind of like shrinks up.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's
right,
like,
right.
and as soon as they get to the other side, they're like, "Oh, that's what that means."
Well, it's funny you bring
know?
that up, because I mean, so many times I say when I'm talking to the other side, I say, "Oh, and I just feel like I've wasted so much time." And they all laugh and say, "No, you're exactly where you're supposed to be."
Right.
You know?
I felt the same way. It's like I got to rush to do this stuff, but
Yeah.
it is. It's the same thing. Like, no, you're on the right schedule.
Right.
You're doing the right thing, and so just keep going where you're going.
Right.
And that's the main thing. Is it's not your physical accomplishments; it's how you treat other people. That's what the children
Yeah.
say. That's the main thing: is how you had treated other people
Yeah,
while you have these experiences.
relationships are very important.
Relationships are very important.
They're almost the end all and be all.
Yeah, because it's
Of
it's
life.
a simple opportunities that we have a way of screwing up a lot
Yeah.
sometimes, well, but so we can learn a lot from the kids, from their
Okay,
experiences.
so how can we get your book?
You can get that on my website, joehiggins.com, or you can get it on Amazon with my other books.
So
Yeah.
it's always connected for those who have lost children. I don't know how well you can see it on the
Actually,
screen,
you've
but
never lost them.
Right.
They're not
it's
here
not physical
physically.
bodies anymore. Yeah.
Right, and it's for people, even for people that are not biological parents. They can be for coaches and neighbors. A lot of these people suffer in silence when a child passes, because sometimes society judges them for their grief because they're not related to the family. But they're connected. We're all connected, and they're connected. You know, if a neighbor's been taking care of the kids next door for 30 years and then one of those childs dies, they're really going to be affected. And sometimes they have to do their mourning in secret, which is something else we talk about in the book, because it has to be, we have to accept those people no matter where they are
Right.
in that child's life.
Right.
You know, so we want to, you know, even though people can't have children, they very much are affected when a child passes. That's why originally it was for parents who lost children, and I switched that out to those who have lost children,
Yeah.
because so many people lose
Right.
children that might not necessarily be biological.
They
Right.
get impacted by the loss as well.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. And they have to deal with it in a different way. You know.
Have you ever seen? I've only seen this like once or twice in my readings. Have you ever seen a child though that hasn't crossed up because the parents are grieving so hard, so difficult with the grief, that the soul actually comes back to this plane?
They don't actually come back. They will try to help the parents to a certain extent, but they're definitely, you know, they're definitely back home on the other side.
Yeah.
But you might pick up a piece of them that wants to come close, because sometimes they will want to give that feeling that they're around. Just like an adult, sometimes they'll brush your hair. Sometimes you'll feel a wisp go by you. The children will do that too, so they will come close.
Okay.
But they're not stuck here because the parents can't let them go. When a child goes, no matter if it's an infant or anything, it's an automatic process, and they're just wired into it to know exactly how to get back, and there are people there obviously guide them in and out.
So they can get this on your website, joehiggins.com, is it?
Yep, or
Okay.
on Amazon.
All right.
You can just Google my name, or
So they can be familiar though with the book though when they look it up. Okay. So
And the butterfly is a symbol of transformation.
right.
And that's what happens with the kids. They transform into spirits.
We all do. That's one
Yes.
of the big things too, is we're just on a different schedule,
Yeah.
Right, right.
you know? It's all part of it's all about, you know, a continuous life cycle.
Right, right. Well, I've said to some people you have a discussion and your heart-to-heart feelings and whatnot, and I say, well, you know, it's a passing, you know, but it's not really a death. It's actually a birth into a different dimension.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a transformation, like Josie
Exactly,
said.
exactly.
Except for old timers like us, we hang out until until we're like finally, all right,
Yeah.
enough is enough.
Yeah.
So, but it's all good, and
Yeah.
it's great to have the kids come through with the signs and explain to the parents that there is more. There is a bigger picture.
Right.
There's never a time where it's a wasted life. It's never a time where it's a loss. Because they will get to see them again, and we can talk about that at another time, which is really important.
Yeah. We are having you on another show, so probably will air a week from now.
Okay,
So, you know, stay tuned.
we'll do
you
a
know.
part two.
Yes, a part two.
Yes.
Yeah,
Because there's a lot more details.
yeah, there's a lot more things people need to know about the bigger pictures, and
What's
it's
the-
our job to get it out, the
What's the
information.
most common questions you have from the parents or from the adults that took care of the children? Then when they're looking for the children to come through?
Like I said, was it their fault? Could they have
Okay,
done
that's a
something
common-
different?
okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And that
common.
creates all this other regret and soul searching and
Yeah, a lot of the what ifs.
yeah, a lot of the what ifs. And that's one of the main things I learned when I was writing this thing was you have no control over that. You have no control. Does not I don't care if you're in a car and you killed one of your children. You are not going to have control over that situation. It's hard to understand, but
Right.
once you get the whole picture of how things work, you'll realize you have to stop having the guilt, because in that situation, you're just basically the judge, jury, and executioner for yourself over and over, because you don't have the information for the bigger picture.
Right,
So step back,
right.
grieve, absolutely, but realize that there's other things at play.
Yeah, other factors. I mean, we're not understand until
Very,
later.
I'm sorry. Very often, the people that grieve the most are people that hold on to the guilt.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's chronic. It happens in a
It's a
circle.
vicious cycle.
Unnecessary guilt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that might be part of one of the lessons they're here for too as well.
That's
To let
right.
go of
You're right. To let
guilt.
go of the guilt on yourself and take care of yourself. Another thing in the book too we talk about, and we can talk about it in part two, is the different ways of healing yourself, taking care of yourself, and I think it's very important that people do that
Yeah.
because
The
there-
self care.
the self-care, because there are other people involved.
Right.
So we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Good.
So is there going to be a part two to the book?
No, I put everything in the kitchen
Yeah.
sink in there.
Okay, so it's all one. That's it.
That's it.
With the
When-
baby in it.
Yeah, the baby and the bathwater's in it.
Well, I always enjoy, you know, talking with you about all your different books and the emotional and level that people deal with in transitions and things like this. But, well, unfortunately, I won't be here for the next show. But nonetheless, it's always just a pleasure talking with you because you just come at it from so many different points of view.
You can watch it right here on this channel,
Yes, that's right.
Absolutely.
Right.
so you won't miss anything.
Yeah, yeah, that's good, Joe. I always
Yeah.
appreciate your company.
Thank you. I love being here.
So it's
That was great.
joehiggins.com, right?
Yep, nice and simple.
Okay.
JoeHiggins.com.
Okay.
And it's 2 G's.
Yes, that's important though when you look for the website though for the books. Yes.
Yeah, if you type it into Amazon, you'll see all the books come up.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Oh, okay. So I'd probably be able to get that on Kindle or something, right?
yeah, you can get it on download it to Kindle.
Wow.
Yeah,
I even hear now Kindle, they even have it so that when you're reading it, it reads it to you.
yeah. I haven't tried it because I have a Kindle, but I haven't tried it the voiceover thing.
Right, right.
Yeah, that's more for the visually impaired or the ones that have trouble getting the words right when they're reading it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
Very good.
very interesting book though that you wrote. Very interesting.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys.
It will help a lot of people.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the feedback's been very good. You know,
Yeah, I heard it
I'm
was
happy.
very well received so far.
Yeah, Yep, I'm very happy with it. And